Good morning, students. This is our second session of recording, and it's dealing with the second chapter or the second session in the program. So it's about the external environment, and if you look at the strategic management process, on slide number 4 you will see the layout of the book and the layout of the course itself. So we're now on chapter 2, the external environment. And we'll go on to chapter 3 and chapter 4 later on this morning. So if you look at the external environment on slide 8, it has a number of dimensions which we need to cover when we're examining the external environment. So we're dealing with the physical environment, the socio-cultural environment, the global, technological, political, legal, demographic and economic. So it's not all about economics, but economics plays a key part, obviously. And it's also looking at the competitor environment. What are our competitors doing? What innovations have they got? What activities are they engaged in that we're not involved with? And what can we learn from them? So there are 4 key elements of analysing the external environment. The first of these is scanning. How firms use the scanning process to either detect early warning signals regarding potential changes or to detect changes that are already underway. The second stage is monitoring. So this represents a process whereby analysts observe environmental changes over time to see if in fact an important trend begins to emerge. Forecasting is the next one, which represents a process where analysts develop feasible projections of what might happen. And lastly, we're dealing with assessing, which represents the step in the external analysis process, where all of the other steps come together. So we have scanning, monitoring, forecasting, and assessing as the key stages in looking at the external environment. Now there are 6 segments to the external environment. There's the demographic segment, the economic, political, socio-cultural, technological, and then there's global factors, as well as the physical environment segment outside the actual company itself or outside the focus of our strategic management process. Global factors are what's happening in the world today, what's happening in the global economy, what's happening in the global political or socio-political environment. So there are 5 forces of competition in the model, and these are based upon Porter's 5 forces. There's the threat of new entrants. What happens if new entrants come into the picture? How are they going to impact on your business? The second one is the bargaining power of suppliers. So if you look at that from a practical point of view, the price of coffee has been going down considerably because of the work of a company called Starbucks. And you're probably familiar with Starbucks since they're locally based here in Surabaya. But the bargaining power suppliers means that the people who are purchasing on behalf of Starbucks can keep the price as low as possible so that they can increase their profitability. The consequence of this is that hundreds of thousands of coffee farmers throughout the world, and particularly in Latin America, have lost their livelihood. So for me, Starbucks is not a company I would ever support because of its threat to the livelihood of so many thousands of people. The bargaining power of buyers. So if you're a buyer, you have a tremendous amount of power if you're going to buy large quantities. Then there's the threat of substitute products. Are there things that can replace your products in the marketplace? And if so, what does that mean? So if you look at the mobile industry, mobile phone industry, we have a dominant position with companies like Apple and Samsung, but now Oppo and Huawei and various other companies are coming into the picture, and these are a threat to the existing firms. So new entrants come into the market, they impact upon the overall market. Then rivalry among competing firms. What's the rivalry between, let's say, Samsung and Apple? There's tremendous contention between these 2 companies, and they have sued each other both in America and in Korea. Interestingly, enough. It's noted that when the threat was in America, the court cases went against Samsung. When the court cases took place in Korea, the judgment was against Apple. So where's the real truth in all of this? But these are 5 forces that every competitor must pay attention to if you're looking at the overall picture. Then if you're looking at competitor analysis components, slide 29, you've got a number of elements there. One is the future objectives of your company. What are you trying to achieve? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And then what's your current strategy? How are we currently competing in the marketplace? And does the strategy of my company effectively compete with other companies in the sector? And then what assumptions do I make about my future and the volatility of the marketplace from my perspective? And how are my assumptions about your business and competitors' businesses? Are they realistic or are they over-exaggerated? And then fourthly, we have our capabilities. What are our strengths and weaknesses? And how do we rate compared to our competition? So are we better than them? And in what sectors or what aspects of our business are we better than them? We'll come to this again later in the next few sessions. And then lastly, what's our response? What's our response to our competitors? Whatever they're doing, what are we doing to counteract that? What are we doing to compete effectively with that? And what innovations or initiatives are we taking to override what's happening in the marketplace from our competitors? So these are elements of the competitor environment which we need to pay attention to.